Try not to get scared. Scariest stories. One night, as I was dining on my Magdalena Bay limited edition pepperoni's pizza, I heard a knock at my door. To my utter surprises, it was Michael.
Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. I hope your 2025 is off to a good start. As is basically tradition at this point, I wanted to start the year off properly, putting aside the fact that I did put out the top 10 albums video in 2025, ignore that for right now. I wanted to start off the year properly with a Q&A to commemorate the fact that this channel has hit 3,000 just 3,000 subscribers. We did it, guys. To commemorate the fact that this channel has hit 300,000 subscribers. I think it's around 315,000 by the time I'm filming this video, but I didn't get to do it right when I hit 300K because of other videos and life stuff, so I wanted to do it now, and I wanted to answer some questions, because I haven't done this in a while. It's been like over a year at this point. First off, thank you all so much. I say that with all of these Q&As and with all of these milestones, but I hope you know that I am never taking any of this for granted. Like, this channel has been so important to me over the past couple of years, and it's unlocked new doors for myself, and like, I don't know where my life would be if I hadn't decided to start making videos all those years ago, and I am just so humbled and appreciative that you choose to spend any amount of time with me, whether you've been watching for several years or if you just like checking in every so often. I do really appreciate it, so thank you all so much. Second off, I hope you had a good 2024. Mine was actually quite a lot. There were a lot of good things that happened for sure, but there was also quite a lot of things that just weren't as great. And in fact, I would dare say that like the last 3 or 4 months on aggregate were actually kind of rough. Like, I ended the year sick, like physically sick, which usually does not happen for me. But I was also just burnt out by so many things in my life. And to be clear, I'm not trying to like play with your sympathy or anything. I'm okay in the grand scheme of things. I have my health, I have my family, I've got a roof over my head. Like, it's all good. It's just, you know, some things that just weren't that great that happened. And I say all this to tell you that if you had a rough 2024 as well, I was right there with you, and I'm hoping you and me both have a great 2025. And if you had a good year, then heck yeah, I hope the fortune and good luck continues for you. But with all that aside, let's move on to the questions. I sourced these from both the YouTube community tab and also my Instagram. If I didn't get to your question, I apologize, though there is also the chance that I already answered it in a past Q&A, and I didn't really feel the need to rephrase or reiterate the answer. So if you're interested, go check out those other videos as well. But yeah, without further ado, let's go. A couple people were asking about Nebula, and I don't think I've mentioned this in a video yet, but as of a few months ago, I am on the creator-owned streaming service, Nebula. It's honestly been a dream of mine to be a part of that community. I'm on there, and a ton of other music commentary people who you probably already know are on there too, and just like a ton of other great creators. All of our videos are on there without ads or sponsorships, and there are also like original series and classes and all this other stuff. It's a huge library of stuff to check out, and it's a pretty good deal too, if I don't say so myself. If you click the link in the description, you can go sign up. Again, really good deal. Nebula's awesome. I'm super happy to be on there. Let me answer these questions now. Will you ever make a Nebula original series? And if you did, what would it be about? I think I might have mentioned this idea on like the very first Q&A, but now that it's like a possibility, I've always wanted to do this kind of series where it's like a road trip across the US and you're looking at music scenes in certain states, but not like the main one you would think of, if that makes sense. So like New York, everybody thinks of like New York City's music scene. But what I would want to do is I'd want to go out to like Buffalo or, you know, Albany or somewhere else like that in New York, like really shine a spotlight on that musical community. Or like Massachusetts, like everybody thinks of Boston, but what about like Amherst or Worcester or Lowell? And just do that for all of these different states, because I think it would be a great way to like shine a spotlight on these communities and show that like there are still musical communities out there that are tied together by geography, because a lot of times these days it can feel like music communities are only really online, but no, if anything, like we should be celebrating that more when people can find each other in person and, you know, build something incredible like that. So that would be my idea. I'll see if it ever gets made. I'm very tired, so I'd like to be less tired before I do that, or at least tired in different ways, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know, we'll see. Will more of your backlog of videos make it onto Nebula? I'm not expecting all the really early QRBs, but stuff like the Medulla video, or maybe even stuff that got taken down due to copyright, can find a more permanent home there. Love your work. Thank you so much. Yeah, I plan to put everything on there at some point. Like maybe not the single album reviews I did back in 2018, but like all of the longer videos will absolutely be on there. I'm just lazy, and especially late last year, there was just a lot of stuff that was either taking up my time or left me feeling very tired so that I didn't even think about, doing the uploading onto the platform. But honestly, now that you've mentioned it, I'll probably do some later today after I film. So yes, every long form video of mine is gonna be on there. Trust me. A couple people had questions about my alma mater, the college I went to, UMass Lowell. I was one of the students at UMass Lowell that met you when you came to visit, and just wanted to say it was really cool to get to meet you. It was really cool to get to meet you too. A couple months ago, I was invited to come back to UML and talk to some of the freshmen and talk about, what I've been up to, my, work on the channel. It was really cool getting to meet all of those students and talk about what I do. So shout out to UML students, they're all really cool, and they should all get $1 million. Mr. The Snare, I know you also went to UMass Lowell for SRT, and I'm dying to know what your soundalike was. So for context, the soundalike was our second semester junior year project, where it basically is what it sounds like. You take a song and you try to copy it to the best of your ability. I want to say mine was Paramore's Ain't It Fun. That was a good time. It was a good song too. It's a fun song to record. What is your advice to expand music-related networking? How did this especially work while being in the music scene in Lowell? Honestly, being in Lowell at that time in college, it was easy to network because all of us music kids were just like on top of each other all the time and taking classes together all the time. So networking there was actually quite easy, and it was very easy to just, know somebody from a class who's like, hey, I'm gonna go to this basement show, or oh, I'm gonna go into downtown and go see a show, do you wanna come with? So it was pretty easy to do that. And then to your other point about like, what's the advice? I'd say primarily just be where the people are, go to shows in your area, go to mixers, I was at a music industry networking event last year. Like if there are those happening in your area, check some of those out too. Just really seek to find and meet people, and not with any sort of goal either. Like I am looking to, get a job from you, because people can sense that, I've been there myself, I've definitely been the guy at the AES convention in New York who's quietly praying and crossing his fingers that someone will just find me and hire me. But I think it's a matter of just recognizing that networking is a word for just meeting people and getting to talk with them. And if something cool comes of that, then that's great. And if not, then you've just met a cool person. So yeah, be where the people are. That would be my advice. A lot of you are asking if I had any plans to return to album reviews like the Mike's Monthly Mix and the Quick Review Basharoo. No, I really don't have plans to go back to that style of video. Never say never, of course. It could happen at some point, but yeah, I don't have any plans to do it now, and I would be very surprised if I ever got the inkling to do it again. That said, I think somebody did ask about would I ever want to adapt that onto Instagram or something like that? And that I have actually been thinking about, because I have been wanting to boost my presence on that platform a bit more. I don't know what form that's gonna take. Maybe it's something like album or music recommendations. Maybe it's something else. I did the parody Hypebeast videos for a bit, and I still like them, but I think a lot of people took me very seriously when I did those. So I guess my sarcasm is just very hard to spot if you don't already know who I am. But yeah, no, I am open to maybe doing something like that on Instagram in that format. But also, again, no promises. I just know that I want to be more active on Instagram, and in whatever form that takes. So yeah, I got a bunch of questions asking if I would ever go back to the music that defined the Decade series. And this is a two-part answer. The first is a lot of people were asking if I would go back to the 60s and the 70s. I'm not opposed to it, but it doesn't seem very interesting to me, because a lot of those, like the further back you go in time, the more settled a lot of the history becomes. Like, if I talked about the 80s, yeah, I'm gonna bring up Michael Jackson, I'm gonna bring up Madonna, I'm gonna bring up like Phil Collins in the Air Tonight. Like, a lot of that feels like settled territory already, and I'm not really interested in like just rehashing things that people already know. I want to dig in deep and find new things to talk about. I'm not like completely opposed to doing them, and who knows, like I might do them at some point. It's just not it's not a priority of mine right now. That said though, I am working on one right now, but it's not for the 80s or the 70s, it's for this decade so far. It would be like the music that defined the 2020s so far, and it would be looking at the past 5 years. Because this past 5 years, this decade so far has been wild. It's been hard to find like a single through line to connect all of the music that's, come out and really taken hold in pop culture. But that also interests me a lot because it's a challenge and it's like fun to figure that kind of stuff out. So I guess the answer is yes and no. No, I don't plan to do it for the 80s and the 70s right now, but I do plan to do one for this decade so far. I also got questions asking about the Learning to Like series that I had going for a bit when I did like Learning to Like Metal and Learning to Like K-pop, and that kind of surprised me because I thought that series kind of died in the water a bit. I mean, the metal one did very well and like a lot of people responded to it, and then I did K-pop and it did okay, like in the grand scheme of things. It got a decent amount of views, but I was kind of expecting more of a linear trajectory on that, or even like upward trajectory to show that like, oh, this is a series people are interested in. And after the K-pop one, it didn't really seem like people were all that much. But I mean, people were asking about it. So maybe there's, I would be open to it for sure. Like if there's a genre you want to see me cover, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I really hadn't thought about it in a while. Which is wild too, because I think the last time I did it was like early 2023. Like I think the K-pop video is like nearly 2 years old at this point. It's wild to think about too. But yeah, I'm surprised that people are still interested in that. But yeah, no, I'd be down if an idea or a genre presents itself that would be interesting. Yeah. I had 2 people asking about musicals and if I liked them. Yes, actually I do. I used to do musicals way back in like middle and high school. I haven't done them since really, but no, I actually have a soft spot for musicals. I haven't kept up on them much these days. Like I feel like the most recently critically acclaimed one was like Hadestown, but I still haven't heard the musical in full. I think the last musical I really like caught up on and paid attention to that came out recently was Hamilton. I think I was DJing a wedding in 2016, and I think the whole soundtrack carried me from one end of Massachusetts to the other. Say what you will about it now. I know people have kind of mixed feelings about, what it was doing. I still think it's, very, very well made, and I still think some of the songs on there are excellent. I still get Helpless stuck in my head every so often. It's a good musical. I'll stand by that. But yeah, I'm a fan of musicals for sure, and I like movie musicals too. Like La La Land's a great movie. It's funny too because one of the first videos I'll be putting out this year is on a musical, and some of you might be excited to hear that, and I guarantee you won't be when you see what the musical is. I'll give you a hint. It's a movie musical that came out very recently, like within the past few years. So strap in, folks. One of those people also asked about Tony Awards and general showtunes. I don't keep up on the Tony Awards really, but yeah, showtunes in general I've got a soft spot for. And then another person asked what some of my favorite music-related TV shows were. Atlanta is a big one. That's such a good show. I've also mentioned it in passing here and there. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend I think is an excellent show. And I've been wanting to do a video on it for a while, but it's just other things come up. But I still would love to do a video about that. What else? Oh, Flight of the Conchords. That's an older one, but like that was one of my favorite shows of the 2000s. Very much a fan of that show. Next up, a whole bunch of questions about the Deep Discog Dive. Are there any artists that you're worried about doing a DDD for them, but you kind of have to do them at some point? There's only really one artist I can think of that your description would apply to, and I'm doing them this year. aside from that, like, I feel like the ones that I don't want to do are also the ones people don't want to see me do. Like, nobody wants one on like R. Kelly or Chris Brown or Burzum or like, I don't know, do any of you want one on Diddy? Would you ever do an updated dive on King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard? They only had 18 albums when you did them, and now with a soon-to-be 27th album coming, I'm wondering your thoughts on their output since then. I understand maybe doing just 9 albums wouldn't be a full vid maybe, but when they get to like 12, since you're DDD, would you maybe tackle them? People ask me this a lot. I'm open to it. It's just like, it's one of those cases where I don't like making videos that require you to have seen another video of mine to get. And like, at least me speaking right now, I probably wouldn't like go back through the whole catalog again just to see if my tastes have changed. So I would just do like those newer records and then maybe like a catch-up bit at the start. I don't know, I'm open to it, but it's just, I don't know, maybe when they have more records. Though I guess the more records they put out, the longer the video becomes and the more tired I will be. I don't know, we'll see. I know you said you considered rewriting/remaking old DDDs. Is that still in the cards? Because I'd love to see your old MCR one, but in the updated style and with them back together. Oh yeah, that's still totally in the cards. I think my plan is to redo all of the ones from like the first season, if you will. And I think what's left is Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, MCR, Blur, and Oasis. I think those are the ones that are left. In fact, I'll just say this outright. Oasis is gonna happen. This year I'm gonna redo Oasis. Shout out to the Twitter account that tags me like every day or every other day about that. You're gonna get your updated Oasis dive. It's not gonna happen for a while. Like, it's gonna happen closer to when they go back out on the road. So it's not gonna happen until then, but like, yeah, it's gonna happen this year. I don't think it'll be the first one though. There's one before that I want to do. I'm tired of trying to not sound like a mad woman while writing this. Mike, please do a DDD on Brazil, like key albums and stuff from old to modern movements. I promise you will love our shit, and we will love to see you talking about it. I'd actually really enjoy videos on the music of any country, but please, if you consider this idea, keep us on your mind. Also, thank you for the awesome stuff from last year. Your video on CXOXO really changed the way I look at this wonderfully ugly baby. Well, thank you so much. I'm assuming when you mean like a DDD on Brazil, you mean just like a video about Brazil and its music. And it's funny too, because I was thinking about doing a video on Brazil last year, but specifically the Come to Brazil meme that I feel like was more popular like a couple years ago, but I still see every so often, because I was looking into like why that's become a meme. And it seems like from my research so far, it seems like one, Brazil's music culture is just incredibly passionate, like arguably the most passionate of any country's fan base out there in the world. And then two, big artists don't come to Brazil that often. Like, I was actually shocked. I was reading that Taylor Swift stopped in Rio de Janeiro once or twice for the Eras tour, and that was the first time she had ever been to Brazil, like toured Brazil, which blew my mind. So I was thinking about that angle of it, which would also kind of get into like Brazil and the Brazilian culture and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that could be an interesting thing too, of like looking at different, countries' music and examining it more. That could be cool. Yeah. If you ever do a deep discog dive for an artist with a short discography, for example, Joy Division, would you cover the side projects? Or in this case, what came after, New Order? For those guys specifically, I would combine them into one video. For everything else, it would probably be a case-by-case basis. But like, I've always had it in my head that if I ever did Joy Division or New Order, I would just, staple on the other band. I love your DDDs. Thank you. Have you considered doing a reverse discography dive? Have you ever went and listened to a discography in reverse to see if it changes how you react to the albums? I keep thinking we never give later albums their due because we are thinking of the older ones. And if not, can I do it? Is that ripping you off too much? That's an interesting idea. I don't know. I'm not going to do it anytime soon. So if you want to try doing it, then like, you're welcome to. I don't think that's ripping me off too much. Has there ever been a DDD that you shelved entirely, or have all of them made it to YouTube eventually? Every single DDD that I've like gotten to the point where I started writing a script for it has been made. There's only ever been one video that I had made fully and then didn't put out, and it was back when I was doing the quick reviews in 2018, and I think it was on XXX Tentacion's question mark album, because it was like I don't know, it was just he's a controversial figure and he did some messed up stuff when he was alive, and I think when I was talking about the record, that kind of came through a bit. It just seemed kind of dismissive. So then I was like, nah, I don't want to put that negativity out there. And then I took it back. And I think that was good because a couple weeks after that, he passed away. So yeah, I think that's the only video that I have made and then decided not to release. So all the other DDDs, those were all fine. I really enjoyed the Rat Boys DDD, so I'm wondering if you think you'll get the opportunity to collaborate with more bands on a DDD like in that episode. I don't have any plans coming up to do that in a DDD format. I'm more interested in doing interviews for videos that like I can really craft an idea around. So yeah, I'm open to that for other kinds of videos. I don't really see myself doing it again for a DDD. Going forward. When planning a DDD, do you try to get it out before a big release, after, or just whenever? Depends on the band. Like if we're talking Heads, that I just do whenever because it's like the band's basically done at this point, and you know they're kind of evergreen in that sense where just people care about them regardless of what's happening. For the Charlie one, I did try to get that out around the time that like Brat Summer was happening. Yeah, I guess it just depends. Sometimes I try to time it for something. Other times I'm just like, hey, let's talk about Pitbull. I noticed in your recent videos, such as the one on expensive albums, that you've been covering Michael Jackson. So I've been wondering, in general, how would you approach doing DDDs on figures with controversial histories? You'll find out in a few months. Does the demand for DDDs make you feel confined in what type of you like to make? Do you feel like it prevents you from exploring different ventures on the channel/beyond? I love the DDDs, but notice on all platforms people asking for certain artists regardless of the topic of your video/post, hoping you feel comfortable doing whatever your heart desires.
Who told you that?
Okay, I'm not mad if you leave a comment like that on my posts or videos or anything like that. I get that it's people just excited and they want to see, artists they like covered in this format. I totally get it. To answer your question though, I do feel it sometimes. Yeah, especially when it is like completely unrelated. And there is a part of me that like, I work really hard on the DDDs and they take weeks, if not months, to put together, and I will put one out, and then like one of the first comments is like, do a DDD on someone entirely different. And it's like, no man, I just made something and I just like gave it to you all kind of for free. You don't have to pay to use YouTube. Like you're paying with your time in a sense, or, sitting through ads, but like, I do kind of wish people might, sit with the thing that I've made first before they, start asking for more things. I find that's also a thing that happens with reaction channels. And for those kinds of channels, you can make those videos far more regularly than I can a DDD. So I guess falling into that like artist conundrum can be okay for them, but for me, it's like, I don't move that quickly. And I do kind of wish people might sit with the videos first a bit more. In fact, it's been nice when I do videos that aren't DDDs, that just explore other topics. And then I go down to the comments and it's like, like most of the people on this video are talking about this video. What a concept. I feel a little bit of relief when I see that. So yeah. Very, very astute question. How do you feel about people calling you the music channel equivalent to Scott The Woz? Oh, I take it as a huge compliment. Yeah, Scott's stuff is great. And there's a deeper reason for it too, right? Because I feel like a lot of people just focus on the whole white brunette boy with glasses talks about nerdy subject on the internet thing. And we do share that for sure. But like, there's an element to Scott's stuff that is so great because it's clearly so well produced and Scott puts in so much work. But there is always this element of like, you look at it and you go, oh, I could do that too. There's a lot of YouTube. I'm gonna sound like such an old man right now, but there's a lot of stuff on YouTube these days that feels very produced. Like you can tell it has like a full team behind it. Like it feels almost like a TV show. And that's cool and all. I'm glad that stuff's there. But a part of me wants to keep that homegrown element of YouTube as well, where it's like clearly Scott and everything he does, like he puts 110% into it, but like everything still has this like homegrown, homemade quality to it. And I find that incredibly endearing. So yeah, I hope to embody that with my own stuff too. And yeah, I am totally fine with people thinking that I'm the music Scott The Woz. I consider that a very big compliment. Hello, Michelangelo. Now that we're halfway through the 2020s, what artists, genres, technologies are you noticing as trends that you would say are defining the decade musically? Is there anything you're looking forward to / hopeful for this decade's future? Love your work and excited as ever to see your new videos. Thank you so much. Honestly, I would say that it would kind of spoil the 2020s video I'm working on, but a lot of that is still so up in the air because I'm still trying to figure out like the narrative of that video. I'll say this, I was listening or reading Kristen Robinson from Billboard, and she was saying that, you know, roughly every 10 years we have a change in how we listen to music, like it's vinyls, cassettes, CDs, digital downloads, and now streaming. Like all of those last for a period of roughly 10 years, or at least they're at their height for 10 years. We're halfway through this decade, streaming is still the thing, and I don't really think anything's gonna replace it at this time. Everybody's talking about AI, but that's more of a like creative or generative thing and not like a distribution thing. To that same extent, I don't really know if the 2020s have like a singular movement or movements to them yet. Like I know right now country is popular, K-pop's been a thing, retro throwbacks like Dua Lipa or The Weeknd earlier in the decade were a thing. But it doesn't really feel like someone has like really carried forward what the sound of this decade is. It's like everybody kind of gets their own chance at leading it for a bit, but that's kind of it. Like the torch keeps getting passed back and forth. And maybe that's just an honest reflection of, you know, how niche music has become and how there's not really like a monoculture anymore and we all get to stay in our own bubbles of genre. So yeah, I guess one thing I'd be hopeful for is like more of a monoculture. Not saying it has to dominate everything else, but like I'd like to be able to go to like a random person or a friend and say like, hey, do you know about Chapel Roan? And they'd be like, yeah, like there'd be those shared experiences. I think we got close to that last year with the Kendrick and Drake feud, because that really felt like something that was just like dominating the culture and the discussion. But yeah, I'd like to have that be more of a consistent feeling thing. So that's one hope. I'm also interested to see, and I'm filming this on, what's the date? This 11th of January. So I think we've got like 8 days before it goes through. TikTok getting banned, if that does actually happen. On one hand, I'm very interested to see how that would affect music consumption and discovery. On another hand, I am, you know, I'd be sorry for musicians or any other business owners who used TikTok as a revenue stream or a way to build business. And on the third hand, God, I'm gonna be so glad if that app is gone. Like, God, the discourse on there made me want to shoot a gun into my head. Like, God almighty, I hated that stuff a lot. And not to say that that's going to just disappear, like maybe it'll find a new home on, I don't know, Instagram or even YouTube. But no, I'm interested to see how that shakes out. How important do you feel album cover art is in this current era of music? What are some of your favorite album covers, both in recent memory and from past eras? Oh yeah, album cover art is incredibly important. I think last year Brat showed that off immensely. Like, oh my God, if you want a crash course in how album art can impact your brand or your album rollout, like, God, just look at that. To that end, I do like that one a lot. Trying to think of other album covers that I like. Ones that are coming to mind right now, The Weeknd's Dawn FM, not the cover where he's the old man, but the alternate cover where it's like the Stairway to Heaven and you're rising to the top, no lead in your Zeppelin. I'll put some up on the screen right now that I really like. Yeah, Editor Mike will take care of that. Good job, Editor Mike. I'm so proud of you. During film school every year, they'd kind of rephrase the question, does genre exist? And like, humans love to categorize stuff to try and ascertain what things are. So yeah, I ask, do you think genre exists? And also up to what point? Like, do you think any genres are like not really a thing? Will they be in the future? I mean, God, I can't really predict genres. I don't know if anybody can. I will say genre does matter, but it also doesn't. Like in the grand scheme of things, like I think you even mentioned it in your comment yourself. Like we as people just like to categorize and we like to put things in boxes, you know, for better or worse that can be. Genre is a good way to like point at something and describe what it is quickly. Because I think we as people value that of like, you know, quickly deciding if something is for us, if it's not. You know, I think that's important to us, both as like in terms of evolution, but also as, you know, consumers too, because we want to know like, hey, does this thing fit into my tastes? If not, I'm gonna, not check it out right now, but if it is, I'm gonna check it out immediately, that sort of thing. And I wonder too, because like genre at the start was just a way to like, package records together so that they could be sold to you, so in a way it's kind of a construct that was put on us by almighty capitalism. But at the same time, like if that didn't happen, I'm sure us humans would want to categorize and put things into boxes, regardless of what big business had to say. So yeah, genre is a thing, but it's also not, because in the grand scheme of things, it's all just wiggly air. First of all, love your stuff and congrats on 300K, 500K soon. Thank you so much. What do you think is your favorite way of artists to roll out their music? Big elaborate rollouts a la Reflector and Lady Gaga's early works, surprise drops like Taylor Swift's Folklore duology and Beyonce's Self-Titled, or something else entirely? I would say I want to be surprised by whatever you're doing. I want to feel excited. I want to feel a bit of a rush when I'm learning about your album and how it's being put out. And oftentimes that involves doing a mix of one or the other. Like sometimes the big long rollout can work if you're the artist that warrants it, or if it's the album that warrants it. Other times, maybe, yeah, just dropping it out of nowhere, like with a day's notice, is going to build the most hype and like generate that excitement. So yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on the situation and the artist and the album you're putting out. Like, as long as I feel excited when you're putting it out, game on, do whatever you want. I admire you for seemingly being able to stay true to your opinions about music, regardless of what the discourse says, such as with CXOXO that many people seem to hate. What are your thoughts around guilty pleasures and how notions around what's good or bad influence and possibly distort our music tastes? First off, I'll say this, guilty pleasures don't exist. I feel confident in saying that. I think it's just something you say when you like a song, but something or someone or some group make you feel like if you were to admit that, like you'd be shunned or ostracized. No, if you like something, you like something. Like guilty pleasures aren't a thing. Just like what you like. In terms of your second point too, about like what notions around what's good or bad influence and distort our music tastes, I think you very much see that. And I think there's another person who asked something to that same effect. I forget what the exact wording is, but I'll find it in here eventually. Yeah, I mean, like listening to music and music itself is at its core a social activity. It's something we do with others, even if we're doing it by ourselves, because, the expectations of the artist and their history around what they're doing and how they're interpreted by the audience, it's always playing into effect, I think. So yeah, I get why some people may not want to outright, say that something they like is something that most people think is bad or vice versa, but like, I don't know, I'm too old for that sort of discussion, man. I just want to like what I like at this point. And also, I think it's interesting to approach, I've had this like mentality shift last year where it's like, I want to go into any artist's work or their albums or anything like that with the assumption that they're good. Like just outright, there's no question about if an artist is good or bad, they just are good, and you react and digest their work through that lens, because I think that opens up a lot more interesting questions than just simply asking, is X artist good or bad? I think that's kind of played out at this point, and I'd like to explore other avenues. So yeah, guilty pleasures, not a thing to me. Yeah. Hi, Michael T. Snare. I just wanted to ask, what do you want your legacy to be on YouTube? Like, what do you want to be known for in the music space on the platform? Thank you for making such great videos, and try not to get your house burned down this year. No promises. First off, thank you so much for watching. And secondly, God, what a big question that is. God, what do I want my legacy to be on here for? I hope I'm a source of reasoned positivity, I guess. I don't want to feed into the rat race of negativity that's on the internet. I just want to be a place where people can come, learn things about an artist they know or they don't know, learn something new about a topic, get a laugh every so often. I just want to leave people more enriched than they were when they first came onto my videos. What is your favorite video you've made? And what was the most difficult to make? Congrats on 300K. Thank you so much. Oh, favorite video to make. That's too hard. It's like asking me for a favorite child out of my 240. I will say recently, I really enjoyed making both the NPR Tiny Desk video and also the most expensive albums video. Both of those were really fun to make. And it's the kind of fun where it's like other videos might feel more like a slog, but like both of those, I was like invested in them the whole time because to me, they're so interesting. And like, the NPR video had Josh Rogosin, who was just a fountain of wisdom. And then the most expensive albums one was just interesting because it's such a ragtag bunch of albums, honestly. Yeah, so both of those, let's say both of those were like my recent favorites. And what was the most difficult to make? It would depend on how it was difficult. Like, I remember the Beatles Deep Discog Dive. I edited that in like 4 or 5 days. And so I think every day that week I was up until like 2 or 3 a.m. editing. How I had that energy, I have no idea. Or in another way, like the Eiffel 65 Christmas special I did, that was more difficult because it was so many things and people to coordinate. Like, I got my friends to act in that. I got a bunch of cameos from other YouTube music people in that one. I got somebody to write the music for it. So that was just like the most difficult in terms of just coordinating everything. I guess also the Prince Deep Discog Dive, because it was just so long. Like, oh my God, that took 2 weeks to edit because God, that was just... Hello, Mr. The Snare. I don't know if you've talked about this before, but do you have music critics that you look up to / serve as your inspiration while making your videos? Also, do you have an album or artist that you had talked about on your channel a long time ago that you've changed your mind about ever since? Love your videos. Can't eat dinner without them. Thank you so much. Watching my stuff while you eat dinner, that is an honor. In terms of music critics, like the people I can think of off the top of my head are like the Stereo Gum bunch, like Tom Bryan, Chris DeVille, Rachel Brodsky, all of them are great. The New York Times folks like John Caramonica and Joe Coscarelli. And there's probably a bunch of other people too that I can't think of off the top of my head. And if I do think of them, I will leave them on the screen here. Again, Editor Mike, you're so good at your job. I'm gonna give you a kiss later. Would you ever cover how labels and distribution work in the music industry? Like how artists are signed to 3-album deals? Videos explaining some of the more legal stuff in the music industry would be very entertaining in my opinion. Love your videos. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would very much like to do some of that, diving into like the more legal side of the music business. In fact, one of my first videos of this year is going to be kind of about that or in that realm. I remember too, last year, I really wanted to do a video about fair use and how it applies to music on this platform because back last summer, Jojo Siwa had just put out Karma's a Bitch, and her team were doing a bunch of takedowns of people who were either playing it in their videos, or I think even like Meat Canyon had sung the melody in it, and that got him copyright claimed. And that really led me down into a rabbit hole of fair use and trying to understand that whole side of YouTube that basically allows me to exist. And I don't think I did it because the Jojo Siwa stuff kind of like fell off in terms of hype and discussion by the time I was ready to write up the script. So I don't know, if something else comes up that, you know, would make it relevant again, I'd be totally down to do a video like that. Congrats on 300K. What is your favorite album from the year you were born? Good question. Give me a second. 1995. Ooh, this is tough. Oh, this is tough. Oh, Christ. Oh, fuck. So I'm gonna have to put it up as a tie between What's the Story, Morning Glory, The Bends, and Post. God, that's hard though. There are a lot of really good albums from that year. God, oh yeah, Brown Sugar came out that year. Jesus. Yeah, I'll go with that. The Oasis, Radiohead, and Björk trifecta. That's what I'll go with. Thanks, Mr. Michael, for being the perfect YouTube channel for me. I love when you get really nerdy, especially about production and engineering. Would you ever do more intensive videos about those ideas? Thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say. Yeah, I'd totally be down to do like some of the more nerdy production stuff in my future videos. I'd have to find a way to like communicate it well in a YouTube title and thumbnail. But yeah, I would totally be down to do that, 100%. What's your favorite joke you've written in a video? The first one that comes to mind is one from the Paramore DDD, where I said something like after the 2 Pharaoh brothers had left, I was like, now that the band had as many pharaohs as an empty Egyptian tomb. I'm very proud of that one. I thought that was very clever. I'm also remembering, because I think I saw somebody had made like a Mike the Snare out of context video, and I think the thumbnail is me with my bat from the Nirvana DDD, where I was talking about In Utero, and it was me being like, time to talk about your feelings. That one is also very funny. I like that. I like that too. Yeah, I'll go with those two. I'd love to know your take on other forms of media in roundup videos as well. Given your wide range of taste in music, I'd be interested to see your taste in films. I hope you have a creative and kind 2025. I always look forward to your uploads. Thank you so much. I wish you the same this year. Film-wise, I don't know. I feel like my taste is kind of basic. Like, let me think of stuff I've seen recently. I'd say my favorite film of last year was probably Hundreds of Beavers, which if you have not seen that, oh my God, it is one of the funniest things I've seen in years. It's like a live action Looney Tunes cartoon with a joke every shot. Like, oh my God, it was so good. And I think it's free on YouTube and Prime Video. So yeah, like check that out. Like you should absolutely check that out. In terms of other stuff I saw, I was on a flight recently and I got to see Twisters, which, you know, not necessarily highbrow entertainment, but it was very good at like being the movie that it was, like that blockbuster disaster movie. And also like Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn Powell were both great. Speaking of Glenn Powell, Hitman from last year, oh my God, that was such a good time. It's on Netflix, highly recommend it. What other stuff have I seen recently? Saturday Night, the movie that's about like the first Saturday Night Live episode. I'd seen mixed reactions to it, but I liked it. I liked the fact that it was like a lot of new people and a lot of up and comers in the acting world. I very much want to see more of everybody who was in that movie. What other movies have I seen? Oh, I saw Megalopolis. I saw Wild Robot. Okay, Megalopolis, it's not terrible. It's a lot, and it's a very singular vision. There were parts I liked. I can't necessarily say that the movie is good, but it was definitely a ride, and I commend it for what it is. At the very least, it gave us the line that's like, you think 1 year of medical school entitles you to plow through the riches of my Emersonian mind?
Entitles me?
Yes.
Entitles me?
Yes.
Entitles me?
Yes. And also, I did mention it, but the Wild Robot I saw as well. Like, that's a good, well done animated movie. I'm kind of bummed that that's going to be the last DreamWorks movie that is animated in-house, because I think they're going to start shipping everything to other places to animate. But honestly, what a good movie to go out on for that internal team. Really good. What are some of your favorite... Love your channel. Thank you so much. I mean, I mentioned him earlier. Scott The Woz is great. Donkey is great. Todd in the Shadows is great. Deep Cuts, Volksgeist. Oh, there's a guy I've been watching recently who I think has been doing phenomenal work in gaming. His name's K-Bash. He does videos that are looking back on like very niche gaming properties. Like he did one recently on like Otogi, like two of those FromSoft games that were on Xbox back in the 2000s. He's done ones on like bigger properties like Borderlands and Mass Effect and the, you know, Souls collection of games. I love his writing style, and it's very much like what I try to aim for, where it's like a mix of genuine analysis and insight, but also just posting and memes, like blending those two together. And I think he does a great job with that. So if you don't already check him out, check his stuff out. He's excellent. To whatever extent you're comfortable sharing, what's your gear and what are your methods? What editing software do you use? What model computer do you run it on? How do you find specific audio and video files you need to insert into your projects? As a longtime big appreciator of your work, aspiring to make some videos myself, any information you have to offer would be mega appreciated. Well, thank you so much. Let me think. So right now I'm filming this on a Canon EOS that my dad gave me a couple years ago. I forget the exact model. Might be an EOS M50. Yeah, I'll throw it up on screen just to confirm what that is. In terms of the computer I use, I have a MacBook Pro that I got in 2022, 2023, I want to say. It has an M1 chip in it. If that helps. And then in terms of editing software, most of this channel's videos have been edited on Final Cut Pro. One video was edited in Premiere, and everything from last year, including this video, was done in DaVinci Resolve, which is my current editing software that I use, and I think it's great. Though that said, I do very much have a soft spot for Final Cut Pro. Man, there's something about the magnetic timeline, man. I know some people diss it or whatever, but God, I love it. It's so good. And then you also asked about how I find specific audio and video files. The internet at large depends on where I find them. I'd say most of them come from YouTube itself. Every so often, maybe one from like Instagram or TikTok, but yeah, it's mostly YouTube. I know you've covered it briefly in your DDDs, but now that we're 2/3 through it, what do you think of the Taylor's version re-recording project as a whole? Do you think it's done what it set out to do? Would you encourage artists in a similar situation to do the same? If so, is there anything they should do differently? Also, congrats on 300K. Been watching since 300, and it's been great watching your channel grow over time. Congrats again. Thank you so much, and for watching for that long. I guess it would depend on who we're talking about and who it's been successful for Taylor, it's been incredibly successful. Like those records plus the Eras tour, that's the big success story of this decade so far in music. Like, oh my God, that's like a once in a generation moment. And I don't think we're ever going to see that again. So for her, it's been amazing. I think it's also been amazing because of the whole aspect of like owning your masters, and the fact that she now has ownership of those master recordings. And they've done a great job of like positioning it as like a moral question. So I suppose for her, it's been successful. Here's my thing though. The actual recordings themselves are like identical, of course, but they're also like 1% worse, and it's not in any meaningful way. It's just like, you know, a lot of those records had become, you know, mainstays in pop music for years, and then you put out new versions that are going to be slightly different by mere virtue of the fact that you're re-recording them, and a lot of them just sound off slightly. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together and then separating all of the pieces by like 1 centimeter. It still gives you the picture, but it's like something just looks off about it. So I can't necessarily say that like the re-recordings are better on their own. But again, for Taylor, it's been successful. Should other artists do it? I don't know if they can, honestly. Like Taylor Swift has something that no other artist right now has, which is a collection of albums that people care enough about to purchase with money. Like no one else has that like distinctive a discography, at least, you know, working right now. No one has that distinctive a discography where everybody cares about the individual records that much. I don't know if a lot of other artists could even pull it off, frankly. Which again, once in a generation moment. I don't think we're going to see it again anytime soon. It would be nice if more artists own their masters, but I think I also read a while back that there are now new clauses in recording contracts that prevent something like this from happening again if an artist wants to re-record their work. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see it again, but for Taylor, it's been incredibly successful. Mr. Snare, what is your opinion on Todd in the Shadows? Because I saw you mentioned him on the Lana Del Rey DDD and saw him in your Christmas video. Todd is great. It's been an honor to consider him a colleague in this space. He's been doing great work for so many years at this point. And yeah, I think he's excellent. I'm sure all of you watch him as well if you watch me. But if you don't, check that out too. And also check out his podcast, Song vs. Song, because I'm on a few episodes of that. And that's a good time too. So go check that out too. What was the best part of Hi-Fi Rush and why was it the whirring segment? Ooh, the whirring segment was good. It was very good. I don't know if it's my outright favorite part though. I will say the 1 million part at the start of the game. I'm trying not to spoil what these are alluding to, but the 1 million part is towards the start of the game. That's also such like, that's the moment when I was playing and I was like, oh, this game is good. Like it's at another level of being good. And I will also say the Fast As You Can section too was that's another favorite of mine because it surprised me too. I was listening to it as I was playing and I was like, wait, this song sounds familiar. And then I heard the chorus. It's like the fast as you can, baby. Like that was such a good part too. Because Fast As You Can is one of my favorite Fiona Apple songs, and to hear that version of it in the game is very cool. So I would say those three are like vying for my favorite part. Do you plan on doing any videos where you just look at what's happening on the pop charts, similar to the Songs of the Summer video you did last year, or even bigger picture videos like the Pop Music is Getting Simpler video? I really appreciate hearing your takes on what's happening in pop music right now. Oh, absolutely. I very much plan on doing those kinds of videos going forward. I'd be very happy to do like a sequel to the Songs of the Summer one for whatever, 2025's Songs of the Summer end up being. I'd also very much like to continue diving into pop music on that level and trying to understand it more in a different way because I find it so fascinating. So yes, those videos will absolutely be coming. Thoughts on how overplay affects songs? My favorite song is Fade Into You by Mazzy Star, which The Guardian voted the most overplayed song in films and TV, yet I'll never get tired of it. Are there some songs good enough that they can withstand any amount of exposure, or is it just a matter of time? I would agree with you on the first point. I think there are just songs that for each individual person, no matter how many times you replay them, you won't get sick of them. I will say one of the videos I'm working on now is this whole month I've been listening to only the radio, like no streaming, nothing else, just whatever's playing on the radio. And I've been thinking a lot about overplay because there are some songs like Die With a Smile or Appa to the song with Rose and Bruno Mars that I've heard a bunch but haven't gotten sick of just yet. Whereas like Hosier's Too Sweet, I've heard a bunch and I'm kind of starting to get sick of it just a little bit. So yeah, it's interesting. And it's up to each individual person too, which makes it a fascinating topic to talk about and discuss. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I've really enjoyed the more frenetic editing style of your recent videos, in particular the top 10 lists of 2024 and the songs of the summer. Was that a conscious choice or has it evolved that way naturally? A matter of both, I would say. It was a more conscious choice to edit those top 10 videos like that because, I don't know, I'm kind of sick of the top 10 format where it's like you start it and you're like, 2024 was a year. Here are the things that happened in it, like recapping it, because it's like, no, we were all there. You all know what happened this year. And then doing the thing where it's like, you know, you do the numbered bits and then you do like the lead up into it and then you explain. And it's just like, it's a very orderly thing that I don't know, I was just kind of getting sick of by the middle of last year. It also, you know, how the audience views it matters too, because I see those retention graphs and I see how everybody's just skipping to the, you know, next number to see what it is. And I very much wanted to combat that a bit. So I was trying to do this style where like there was no real intro leading into it and there was no real ending part of it. It was just simply like this one continuous motion that just took you from one part of the video to the next. And I think it came out, for the songs of the summer one, I think it came out very well. The albums one, I think some people were a little frustrated by it or they wanted me to go more in depth, but like, I don't know, man, I didn't have the energy. I was sick and I was just like, I kind of wanted to just get it over with. I'm sorry. I promise you I put effort into that video. I just, at a certain point, I just wanted to like move past it and be done with it. That gets into some of the, you know, burnout that I was talking about earlier and we'll be talking about later. So yeah, sorry. But yes, the editing style was a conscious decision. So I've been interested in getting into Crazy Frog's discography. Where would you recommend a newcomer like me start? So you're going to want to focus first on the Baroque period stuff. Hello, Mr. Microphone the Snare. What are your thoughts on the Eurovision Song Contest and would you ever consider making a video on it? I don't know much about Eurovision. I know it exists. I've heard of it in passing. I know generally what it is, but like, no, I really have not kept up on it at all. I would very much like to do a video on it someday, and I have thought about doing it for a while now. It's just like other ideas come up and just, you know, interest me more in the short term. So I always end up doing those. But like, yeah, I would totally be down to do a video about it because it's a total blind spot for me right now. Would you ever make a video about video game soundtracks or the songs from the James Bond film series? For video game soundtracks, depend on the hook, I guess, of like what the angle is of what I'm talking about, like specific genres or specific consoles or things like that. If there's an idea that would make sense and is, you know, interesting to zoom in on, I would totally be down to. And for James Bond songs, I've been wanting to do one on that for years at this point. Like I even alluded to it in years ago, I did a video on KK Slider and I hinted at videos about James Bond, Hearing Protection, and Glee. And those last two I've made videos about already, but the James Bond one I still haven't. And I think I wanted to do it in time with when whatever recent James Bond movie was coming out. I think at the time it was No Time to Die, but then that came out and I missed my chance. And so, yeah, I would probably want to time it with whenever the next one is gonna come out, whenever that happens. But yeah, I'm very interested. I would definitely do a video about James Bond songs. Yeah. Can I be in the Q&A video? Yeah, sure. Do you enjoy any YouTuber music? As in YouTubers that make surprisingly good music? Jake Paul, brother. It's every day, bro. I was actually listening to the one where it's like, buy that merch. Buy that merch. I think I found it on Instagram recently. YouTubers that make good music, I mean, the ones that are coming to my mind are now like the ones who aren't known as YouTubers who make music, but musicians who used to be YouTubers. So like Dodie, Joji, Troye Sivan, technically. I'm also thinking back to, and God, this is probably gonna date me a little bit, but like Charlie McDonnell, and like Wheezy Waiter's old band, and probably like a bunch of like the YouTube, the Gregory brothers, the auto-tune the news people, which honestly, aside from the gimmick, like there was some good stuff in those videos, like Bed Intruder song. I get the hook of that stuck in my head every so often. So I guess that's technically good. Okay, but what are your actual thoughts on Smash Mouth's Get the Picture? Also, what do you look like without hair gel? Smash Mouth's Get the Picture is one of those records I had as a kid. It was one of the very first CDs I remember buying, along with like Black Eyed Peas, Ella Funk, and of course, Crazy Frog's Crazy Hits Volume 1. Yeah, it's just always had like a soft spot in my heart, and I like mentioning it every so often. As for like what I think of it as a record, I don't even know, man. Hold On is a pretty good song from the Cat in the Hat movie. Oh my God. And the one that's after that, the Always Gets Her Way, I think that's a good song too. The rest of it, I have no idea. I haven't listened to it in ages. And for the second question, I actually don't have gel in my hair right now, and I don't really put it in much these days. I used to, like if you go back and watch videos of mine from like 2023, I used to put it in. And that was because I was letting it grow like way longer than I do now. Like I think at like the absolute longest, it was probably starting to like become a mullet in the back. Yeah, so I used to then, I don't now. This is just like what my hair is like. Yeah. If Pitbull is Mr. Worldwide, does that mean you are Mr. Universe-wide? Does it? Is that how that hierarchy works? I don't know, I'd have to think on that, because that title probably comes with a lot of responsibility. I don't know if I can say Dale as much or as well as Pitbull does. Are there any opinions you voiced in early vids of yours that have changed since posting? Any you want to change the record on? I mean, if we were to go back through all of my old videos, there are probably a good number of opinions I would change now. There's one that comes to mind, which is, there's the Beatles DDD. And in it, I was talking about Abbey Road and how the lead-in from I Want You, She's So Heavy to Here Comes the Sun can seem really jarring if you're listening to it on a streaming service or a CD. But people were pointing out in the comments that, you know, back in the day, it was a vinyl record. There was time between those songs because you would be flipping over the record to play the other side. I think there was even a video that was like specifically talking about that talking point, and I think it cited my video in it. I don't know. It's one of those things where like I understand that it's not necessarily a flaw per se, because it's just something that changed with how we listened to the record, how most people are going to be listening to the record. I don't know if it necessarily changes my opinion of, you know, what it's like to listen if you're streaming it or listening on CD, but it is a good point that looking back, I wish I had mentioned in that video of like, it's a facet of the record that is only really there if you're listening to it as one cohesive whole and not with a two-sided vinyl record. So yeah. In the 2000s Defined video, you mentioned how music got free by Stephen Witt in regard to the rise of piracy, and it ended up being one of my favorite reads ever. Do you have any other recommendations on music-related books? What are your favorites? The first ones that come to mind, I mean, How Music Got Free is a good one. There's also Major Labels by Kelefa Sani. There's The Rest Is Noise. There's This Is Your Brain on Music. I'm reading one right now, actually, that just came out a few days before I was recording this. It's Mood Machine by Liz Pelly, which is a look into the underbelly of Spotify, and it's been a great read so far. It will probably dissuade you from ever using Spotify again, but that's been a very good read so far. I'm trying to think of other ones. I know I have them over on my bookshelf, but I can't see my bookshelf right now. Oh, This Is What It Sounds Like by Suzanne Rogers. That's also a very good book. I saw on Twitter that you said you got a Steam Deck and played Hi-Fi Rush on it. What was your favorite part of it? Also, have you played any other games on Steam Deck? I think I answered that first part already, the 1 million section, the Fast As You Can section, and the Whirring section. But in terms of your second question, oh yes, I have. I've played a lot more things on the Steam Deck. If I hadn't gotten it last year, I probably would have been like 30-35% more productive all around. But yeah, what else have I got? I've played a lot on there. The first game I got for it was Psychonauts 2, because I adore the first one. Like, I have it on Steam, and I have my original Xbox copy of it over on my bookshelf. And the sequel was excellent, really excellent. I played the Guardians of the Galaxy game, the one that Eidos Montreal did. I think that was who developed that. That was a good game too. I recently completed Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order because that was on sale for like $4, and that ended up being a good time. I was very surprised by that. I picked up Sonic Adventure 2 because I'd never played it. Good game, very good game. And then this past Christmas, I got myself both Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3. I'm gonna be the most powerful person on the unemployment line. How does it feel to be an influential in the pop music space? I don't really know, honestly. It doesn't feel all that different. There's not too much that like materially impacts my day-to-day life. Aside from when people come up to me and, you know, say they like my videos, which I do appreciate very much. Yeah, I feel like a normal human being. I'm no hero. I put my pants on one leg at a time like everyone else. As a prominent music guy online, do you feel there's an issue with people taking their opinions simply from reviewers, i.e. various albums that Fantano disliked being unfairly criticized by people who just repeat an opinion? An example could be the new Camila Cabello, which a lot of people hated despite not even listening just because people told them to. Man, I don't know. On one hand, I want to say it's like something that's exacerbated by the internet and being online. But at the same time, you know, us humans, we're, you know, mob mentality creatures to an extent, you know? Like, if we see something going on and it feels fun to be a part of the group and join in on, like, we'll do it. I'm certainly guilty of that at one point or another in my life. And it's also like, I feel like the internet expects you to be an expert in every single thing that you talk about. And the reality is, like, none of us are experts in the vast majority of things. And if we see something going on online, it's not like we're going to like research it heavily before giving a take. Some people just want to like look at the surface level, put out a take, and then be done with it. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like I'm kind of defending it a bit, but I'm not. Like, I do wish that our discourse was a little bit more holistic and a little less reactionary. But then again, I don't know how you're gonna get that while also being on the internet. Like, if you're gonna have those kinds of conversations, ideally they should happen like one-on-one or even in groups but in person, as opposed to like Twitter or TikTok. Yeah, that was kind of a rambly answer, but I hope it does answer your question. When I mic the snare, I get too much sound bleeding in from the hi-hats. Any advice? Well, first you want to pay attention to your positioning, because if you're using like a cardioid microphone, you want to make sure that the null, the back end of it, is facing the hi-hat so that you're getting the most rear rejection. Also, microphone choice matters too. You want to get one that doesn't necessarily let in a lot of that high frequency information that a hi-hat would give you. Also, be wary of not only your gain staging, but also your EQ, or your compression or any other signal processing, because if you're starting to squash that snare, or if you're starting to like give it some more air on an EQ curve, that's gonna allow that hi-hat to come in even stronger. So be mindful of that. Or if you're letting it come in on that particular microphone, make sure it's being accented well by the hi-hat mic you have, or any of the other mics that might be picking up that hi-hat bleed. I hope that helps. If you were to remove one song from the 2010s to try to make the biggest change in music history, what would it be? I'd be very interested to see a 2010s that doesn't have Video Games by Lana or House of Balloons by The Weeknd. Without either of those, I don't know how the decade would have gone. Ever thought of doing a video on pro wrestling music? I haven't really, but that's a good idea. I used to be into pro wrestling for a while, like back when I was like a middle schooler and like kind of into high school as well. Yeah, that could be really interesting. Yeah, thank you for that idea. Hey Mike, it's my birthday today, so as a gift, could you please say one nice thing about my favorite artist, MGK? All I've been seeing is hate comments about him recently, and it would make me feel much better if you said a nice thing about him. Well, happy belated birthday, first off. And as for MGK, his song, My Ex's Best Friend, genuinely good song. Like, no disclaimers to put on that, no irony to hide behind. It's just genuinely a good song. Did you eat the beans? I know you did. I saw you. Don't try to hide. I rock with you. Not a question, just wanted to let you know. And I rock with you also. What's the most expensive video you've done in your career so far? Probably the Eiffel 65 Christmas special. I had hired someone to do like the music for it, and I also catered the filming sessions that I did when I had my friends acting. Like I got them all lunch and everything. So probably that one. Actually, now that I think about it, the real answer might be the Strokes DDD, because there is 1 second in that video where I am at Primavera Sound in Barcelona and I have a copy of Eiffel 65's Europop. Like, it's not like I went out there solely for that gag, but yeah, that honestly might be the most expensive video that I've made solely because of that. It's definitely the most expensive gag I've done. Okay, here's one. How are you able to put so much music in your videos? Every other YouTuber hates to do anything music related because they will get a strike, but you, Mr. The Snare, are able to persist. How? This comes down to 2 things. 1, really crafty editing that I've had to learn through brute force over these past couple of years, and 2, you guys aren't seeing this, but when I'm uploading a video, I'm often uploading multiple drafts to test where the copyright ID system flags it or doesn't flag it. And like there are times where I'll have to like basically play whack-a-mole with the system, where it's like I upload a draft of a video, 1 song gets copyright claimed, I edit it down so that it plays for less time, I upload a new draft, another song gets copyright claimed, and I keep doing this basically until the video is copyright claim free. So yeah, those 2 reasons. Is there a certain type of music criticism that you find particularly misguided or unhelpful, especially by other music commentary channels here on YouTube? And a bonus unrelated question, you seem to be very into Nintendo. What console and games did you grow up with? For the music criticism stuff, anything that tries to like personally go after the artist, I'm not a huge fan of that, or anything that tries to like go into the more salacious details of an artist's life. And then for your other question, I want to say technically my family did have a Super Nintendo because I do remember when I was growing up, I found the box for Pac-Man: The New Adventures, where he's on the hang glider going like, but no, I think N64 was the first one I distinctly remember playing, and then I always consider the Gamecube as the one that I like grew up with. And as for games, I mean, what do I have? I still have my copy of Melee, still have my copy of Super Mario Sunshine, I've still got Sonic Adventure DX, F-Zero GX, what else? What are the ones? Oh, how could I forget? Monsters Inc. Scream Arena. What is your favorite GameCube or Dreamcast game? God, for GameCube, it's probably Melee. Yeah, it's probably Melee. Yeah, none of the other games I can think of really come for Melee. I put so many hours into that game as a kid. Like, yeah, it's Melee. And then for Dreamcast, I mean, I did beat Sonic Adventure 2 this past year, and it was on Steam, but that is technically a Dreamcast game, or it was originally one. Oh, I have the Xbox version of it, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. To be clear, I'm terrible at fighting games. I'm not a pro at them in any way, but that one is pretty fun. Maybe Seaman too. That's a fun one. Do you think Addison Rae is the next pop it girl? I don't know, honestly, but I will share a fun anecdote. When I was back home in central New York, I was listening to the radio and I heard a couple of times Diet Pepsi, and I did not realize that she or her team were trying to get radio play for that one. I thought that was gonna stay like an online song, and I thought Addison Rae was just gonna stay like on the level of like a Sky Ferreira or a Rebecca Black. But if they're trying to push it on radio, I don't know. Anything can happen. What are the origins of the gag? Why is the word forbidden? I enjoy the running joke, but I'm unsure what the point of the joke is. Oh, the point of the joke is I hate that word. I don't like, I'll break the meme here for a second. I don't like calling my videos content because that, I don't know, it feels very generic. It's like, it's not really what I do. I get why the word exists because, you know, there's so many other people on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok that do content, and what they do doesn't look like what I do. So I get that it's like it's the best catch-all term that we have, but I really don't like calling what I make content. I feel better saying just like videos or, you know, other things like that, retrospectives. To be clear, if you call my videos content, like it's fine. I am not that pretentious, I swear. It's just like whenever I think of the word, I just envision that like white blank space and then like a city background, because it's just noise to me at that point. That's what that word feels like to me. But again, you can call my videos content. I'm not pretentious like that. It's just like my own preference. What question would you like to answer? This one. Favorite meme of 2024? Oh, that's a good question. My first thought is Yap Dollar. The Instagram Reels bit where like it would take the $5-ish and then just have him describe videos, and at the end he would always go Xiao Hong Shu. Can you answer this question in a different room? Yeah, okay. Fortnite. What have been your favorite and least favorite live music experiences? What do you have to say about listening to music live versus streaming? Favorite experiences, I mean, Caroline Polachek, both times I've seen her at Primavera Sound and then in my area have been great. She's been great. Trying to think of who else. I saw Childish Gambino last year. He was excellent. He also did a really funny thing, at least to me, where like in the second half of the concert, he'd be like, all right, if you know this song, you're a real Gambino head. Like you're a real fan. Plays Bonfire. Also, because the person who asked this is a buddy of mine from college, I'll also say specifically for this person, Wolfpack in Central Park. That was a great show. That was a very good time. As for least favorite, Kanye West probably will take the cake for the foreseeable future. I mean, I saw him on the Life of Pablo tour, and he was good, but he was also late by like 90 minutes, I want to say. And I had to, for those who don't know, Boston's subway system closes at like 12:30. And if I didn't leave by then, I would have no way of getting back to my apartment, which was like a solid like 20, 30 miles north. So yeah, I needed to leave the concert early, and I've always been bummed about that. I will also say too, when I was at Primavera Sound in 2022, I saw Black Country New Road, and I was disappointed by their set, but it was because going into it, I didn't know that they were playing all new stuff. I thought they were gonna play Ants From Up There stuff, and they just didn't. So at the time I was disappointed, but since I have learned that there was a reason for it, I still wish they had played some Ants From Up There stuff though. I do, yeah. And then for the difference between that and streaming, I mean, it's monumental, right? It's like the fact that you're like sharing in this communal experience of music versus just, you know, listening on your earbuds. Like there is something so potent about it. And I think that's why, you know, live music has really taken over this industry over the past, you know, 5-10 years or so. And of course, COVID as well. But like, you know, people do really crave that connection and being together and experiencing an artist that they love. Like it's huge. And when it's done well, it's life-changing. Would you love the Crazy the Frog the same if he was a worm? Yes. Of course, wouldn't you? What are some of your favorite Super Bowl halftime shows? I think most of us know Kendrick is about to have the best one of all time, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on some past ones. I mean, Kendrick is gonna be great. I loved Prince's halftime show. I loved Lady Gaga's, Bruno Mars's solo one. Speaking of Bruno Mars, I like Coldplay's halftime show, not just because Beyonce and Bruno show up and then just like own the stage for like a solid 3-4 minutes, but honestly, Coldplay was pretty good for their side of it too. Trying to think who else. I mean, Michael Jackson's was legendary, of course. I actually would love to do a video on Super Bowl halftime shows because there's an interesting history where it's like, if you go back to all of them before Michael Jackson, it was a lot of like really random ones, and then Michael did it, and then everybody just kind of fell in line with that. So yeah, that would be an interesting video. Do you ever find yourself burned out by the YouTube platform? Alternatively, what outside of YouTube brings you the most joy? Yes, very much I do feel burnout, especially this past year. And it's for a lot of reasons compounding onto the YouTube stuff, but yeah, I definitely felt burnt out last year in a way that I had not since like 2020, honestly. I'm definitely trying to be more mindful of that as I move into this new year. And then in terms of what brings me joy outside of it, God, this is gonna sound so corny, but like connecting with and talking to and meeting up with the people I cherish in my life. There were so many times last year where like I was in a down mood, and just by simply reaching out to a friend or meeting up with them for coffee, my mood did a complete 180. Like it really helped a lot. and just like trying to connect more with friends and family and all that stuff. Like that brought me a lot of joy last year. Aside from that, like I like making coffee. I really like making coffee. I like getting outdoors. I like exercising. I like hiking. I like video games, of course, as we've, mentioned a couple times. Just anything that like helps me ground myself and not spiral as I can if I'm thinking about work or YouTube or, God forbid, the combo of the two. So yeah. What are your favorite albums from the 2000s garage indie rock revival? I think it is one of the most interesting movements in recent music, especially with all the artists involved. I mean, you're naming some good ones right there. So like The Strokes is This It? The White Stripes is White Blood Cells. Kings of Leon, I'm not super familiar with their early work, but I am aware that like Aha Shake Heartbreak is considered a really good record of theirs. The Killers, Hot Fuss, of course. Block Party's Banquet still goes hard as hell to this day. Oh, that's such a good record. I'll also mention one that's not on your list here, but it's a band that I think deserves so much more praise than they get these days. TV on the Radio. Like, oh my God, if you don't know their work much, pull up Wolf Like Me and oh my God, it is like, that song is a cannonball of music. It's insane. Like, it will rev you up so quickly. It's so good. And that record, Return to Cookie Mountain, and what was the one after it? Dear Science. That's a good one too. Personally, I think my favorite record of theirs is 9 Types of Light, but like that we could get into a whole discussion about that. But yeah, TV on the Radio deserves so much praise. So much praise. With vinyl coming back, do you think Apple is ever going to release a new version of the iPod Nano to kickstart the MP3 player wave? Ooh, that's an interesting idea. I could see them maybe doing it as like a one-off limited edition thing. Like they make 100 of them and then, they become a collector's item. In terms of like an MP3 wave, I don't think that's going to happen just because we have to remember that music always follows the path of convenience. And I don't really see people adding a new device to replace their phone when in reality, they could just add a new app on their phone. And that's probably the easier way to do it. But that would be cool. I would definitely buy one. Do you believe the state of music journalism today is becoming too positive? I don't agree really, just wondering your opinion. No, I don't think it's becoming too positive. I think the issue is this difference between what the author intends when they put a review or a piece of journalism out and what the audience expects from it, because I do think the audience wants to be entertained first and foremost. If they're informed, then that's great too, but they want to be entertained as well. They want to be told a story. And I think I've encountered this too with DDDs, where it's like, at the end of the day, I might look at 10 albums that an artist has and it's like, they're all good. There's not really like a story to tell about these albums individually. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I like them all. And it's like, that feels kind of boring for me. And I worry that might feel boring for you guys as well. And also, I don't even include scores in my videos anymore. I don't do reviews really, but like even when I did, I didn't have scores for them. Scores opens up a whole other Pandora's box to that extent, where it's like, yeah, like I don't want people to be like needlessly critical or negative just because they, feel like they have to be. But I don't know, maybe there is a thirst for the audience themselves to just have some negativity, I guess. I mean, we're wired for it, right? Like negativity bias and all that jazz. But to answer your question from earlier, I don't think music journalism is too positive. I don't think that. Would you recommend everyone to try giving up streaming for a month? I wonder what kind of an impact that would have collectively. I don't know, honestly. It could be interesting to see what happens. I mean, for the business, like music industry, it probably wouldn't be good because I think 84% of their revenue right now comes from streaming. So, I mean, if we're imagining like a hypothetical scenario where like everyone got off it for a month, so that they probably wouldn't like that very much. On a one-by-one basis, like if it seems interesting to you, like even just changing things up, like I'm doing the radio experiment right now, and like even that's fun. You know what I mean? It's just like changing things up a little bit and like gaining a new appreciation for not only music as a whole, but like how you engage with it and how you listen to it. It's like, it doesn't all have to exist on Spotify or Apple Music or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know. The ramifications of that would be quite interesting. But also I recognize that like, going out of your way to get CDs or vinyls or anything like that can be annoying and also expensive. So I don't know. If it seems interesting to you, go for it. If not, I'm not gonna force you to do it. I'm not gonna show up at your house banging on your door saying you need to do it. Would love to hear your thoughts on music education, coming from a music teacher who uses your content to teach and plan lessons for secondary students. Well, first off, that means the world to me that you use my videos to like educate your students. Like, oh my God, that means so much to me. Thank you. Yeah, music education, incredibly important. People really don't give music education enough credit because there's so much that can come with just, and it doesn't even have to be like a formalized education, like a degree or anything, but just taking up an instrument, learning to play with other people, learning to like build community and existing community in that way. Like just being educated about music is so huge. And yeah, it's incredibly, incredibly important. Thank you for the work that you do also. And again, thank you for playing my videos for your students. Tell them I say hi. Congrats on 300K subs. Been here since the 10K Q&A, and I'm so glad to have been along for the ride. Thank you for being along for the ride. I've always been fascinated with musicians trying their hand at film work, not cameos, but actual starring roles, and the public's response to it, whether or not they find more success in that world than music. Bad example, but Will Smith comes to mind. Would you ever consider making a video about famous examples of musicians turning to other mediums of art, or vice versa, similar to what you did with your video games by musicians video? Ooh, that'd be a very interesting video. I'm thinking primarily of like the actor to musician category, where it's like, I'm thinking of Scarlett Johansson's one album that had David Bowie on it, or Robert Downey Jr.'s album, because one song I think is on the closing credits of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Yeah, so that's a very interesting side of things, of like actors or like non-musicians primarily becoming musicians or like putting out music. And then the inverse of that would be interesting. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. What's your opinion on objective to subjective taste? Do you think objective opinions have implied coercion on people's subjective opinions? And with all that, do you think there's such thing as a bad song? First off, I don't think there's such a thing as objective taste. Like, you like what you like, and what you like is particular to you. Like, there's no like objective quality of like music being good or bad. Anything has the potential to be good or bad. I don't really believe in objective taste all that much. And then to your other question of like, can a song be bad? I suppose it depends on like, in what way? Like, do you just not like the melody? Does it hurt to listen to for you? Does it remind you of unpleasant memories? Is the person who made it a douchebag? Is the song itself perpetuating negative stereotypes or actively inspiring people to hurt others? Like, there's a lot of different ways that a song can be bad, but it's also really dependent on you. Do you think listening to new music can be a chore for you, or do you genuinely look forward to it? I'm gonna be honest, last year it was a chore. I fell behind in a lot of ways when it came to keeping up with everything on the schedule that I would have liked. It's again because of a lot of things that were going on for me last year. But yeah, no, it felt like a chore last year. And I'm trying to reconcile that with how I'm taking the channel forward this year and trying to do, you know, more exciting topics to me personally. Not to say that listening to new music can't be exciting, but just like I've been doing it for the past like 6-7 years. And I want to explore new things. So yeah. Do you think CDs will make a comeback similar to what vinyl has done in the past decade? I don't know if CDs themselves will, because I think a lot of the appeal of vinyl is that it's this like relatively big thing that you get to like have in your possession, and a CD is just smaller, and it doesn't really hit the same way as like a vinyl or, you know, playing something on a record player. That said, I was thinking about this recently. I wonder if CD players like Discmans would ever make a return, but as a fashion object. Like some famous model goes out wearing one if they have like a, you know, 90s inspired outfit, and then maybe that causes like a trend on TikTok, or I mean, TikTok might not be a thing in a few days, so like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, someone starts wearing a Discman just for show, and that inspires a trend. So like, I don't know, that might be interesting. Can you cook my dinner for me? My parents say I'm not allowed to use the oven. Absolutely. I hope you like microwaved steak. Hello, Mr. Snare. Can you please explain how the pregnant goat award got such a name? Also, I thought Might Delete Later was totally gonna get this in 2024. Love and crazy frogs to you. Well, thank you so much. The pregnant goat award comes from a Huffington Post article that is basically just here's an image of a pregnant goat. Isn't that neat? Here it is again in like 7 different colors or 7 different filters. And I remember my brother and I found that article and we were both just like, this is the least necessary article to ever have been written. And looking back, I kind of love it in hindsight, but like, yeah, that's where it came from. The Pregnant Goat Award for least necessary album. Yeah. A lot of your recent work has been about the exhaustion of music discourse on the internet. Do you ever plan to make a catch-all video giving advice about not succumbing to the angry void of the discourse TM? I'll be honest, I'm still looking for that advice myself. I mean, in a lot of ways, those videos were me venting and getting off my chest the frustrations I had about the music discourse. I guess there's one tip: have a YouTube channel where you can just talk about all this stuff. And if I ever do come up with advice or find myself on the other end of the tunnel, I will let you know. Mike, there's so much music out there in the world. I can spend my entire life listening and I still won't hear everything. How do you decide what's worth your time checking out, new and old? I've taken this approach recently, which is more just like, I put myself in positions that allow me to discover things, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not treating music discovery as like a thing that I have to keep up on. I mean, the radio experiment is helping with this because I'm just choosing between different stations and, you know, maybe I'll come across a song I know, or maybe I find one that I've never heard before and I get to add it to a playlist. Like, that has been helping me a lot of just like putting myself in those positions where I can just freely discover music. And it can be like radio, it can be like the internet, like TikTok, it can be Twitter even, like it could be Instagram, like anything that allows you, it could be going to shows, that's another thing. Just being in those positions where you're open to new input. That helps me a lot because, like you, I'm never gonna listen to every single thing, but I can at least appreciate the stuff that I do hear. So, yeah. Who will drop a surprise release in 2025? Los Lonely Boys? Any advice/tips for someone wanting to get into writing about/reviewing music? One of the best parts of your channel is your unique sense of voice and humor, and it makes it all really entertaining and well done. Well, thank you so much. God, it's gonna be so corny. Just do it a lot. Just like, and it doesn't have to be like for an output or anything. You don't have to release it, but just like write a whole bunch and find what your voice is, because that's how you find it. You make things and you either look back on them and you say, I wish I had done this differently, and then you do it differently next time, or you put it out into the world and you see people saying, hey, I like this, I don't like this, and then you take that input as you wish. Like, you don't have to, you know, change every single thing based on what the audience says, but like having those points where it's just like putting things out is what will give you your voice, so to speak. And there we go. That is the 300K Q&A. Thank you to everybody who sent in questions. I'm sorry if I didn't get to yours. And again, thank you so much for 300K. I am honored and humbled and so appreciative of everybody who watches my stuff. I'm a very, very lucky man, and I am, yeah, God, I could keep going on and turn into a giant mush ball, but like, thank you all so much. I've got a couple of videos in the pipeline, stuff that I'm very excited to put out, and I think you will like it very much, and I hope you're as excited as I am. Until then though, I wish you well, and I will see you later.